Located in the small town of MIMS is a house with memories of a couple who fought to change the world. It was during the 1930s and 1940s, before television existed. Harry was an activist at the forefront of the civil rights movement, but his quest for social justice and equality wasn't always welcomed. It came with death threats.
Every crime tells a story, and behind every story is a name, a face, and a life interrupted. Today, we'll shine light on the unsolved case of Harry T. and Harriet Moore. Located on the north end of Brevard County, MIMS is a small Florida town with deep historical roots and natural beauty. Just a short drive from the Kennedy Space Center, MIMS attracts visitors interested in both exploring space and scenic landscapes. Once a citrus-based economy, MIMS is often referred to as Old Citrus Service Village due to its agricultural beginnings. Today, it offers access to the breathtaking beaches like Playa Linda, as well as Merritt Island Natural Wildlife Refuge, home to hundreds of diverse wildlife species. Rich in cultural history, MIM also holds the distinction of being home to Florida's first NAACP chapter, adding another layer to the significance of the quiet community. Harriet Vita Sims was born June 19, 1902, in West Palm Beach, Florida, to David and Annie Sims. One of 7 children, 2 sisters and 4 brothers, Harriet was raised in a tight-knit, hard-working family. The Sims would later move to the small town of MIMS, located in Florida. As a young girl, Harriet spent most of her summers in Massillon, Ohio, working alongside her father, a skilled craftsman in woodlake work. In 1920, Harriet enrolled in the Daytona Normal and Industrial School in Daytona Beach, a school founded by the renowned civil rights leader, Mary McLeod Bethune. The school, which was dedicated to empowering young black women with independence and self-sufficiency, would leave a lasting mark on Harriet. After graduating, she taught at several local schools before accepting a position as an insurance agent at a black-owned company in Cocoa, Florida. Harry Tyson Moore, an only child, was born November 18, 1905, in Houston, Florida, just outside of Tallahassee. After the death of his father, Johnny, in 1914, his mother, Rosalia, struggled to support the family on her own. Eventually, she made the decision to send Harry to live with relatives. He first stayed with an aunt in Daytona Beach, and after a year moved to Jacksonville to live with 3 other aunts, 2 of whom were teachers and 1 a nurse. Their guidance and example would profoundly shape the direction of his life. In 1919, Harry returned home and enrolled at Florida Normal and Industrial Memorial Institute, where he graduated with a teaching degree in 1924. He went on to teach 4th grade at Monroe Elementary, a segregated school in Cocoa, Florida. In 1925, Harry and Harriet met, and 1 year later, on Christmas Day of 1926, they were married. They moved in with Harriet's parents in MIMS before building a home of their own. In 1928, they will welcome their first daughter, Annie Rosalia, and in 1930, they will welcome their second daughter, Juanita Evangeline. Harry continued to work and would later become principal at Titusville Colored Junior High School. Harriet returned to teaching and worked as a lunchroom attendant in several elementary schools in the Brevard County area. In the early 1930s, the Daytona Normal and Industrial School merged with the Cookman Institute, and the name changed to Bethune-Cookman College. Both Harriet and Harriet will both enroll and further their education. Harry earned a bachelor's degree in education in 1936, while Harriet received her Associate of Arts in 1941 and her bachelor's degree in 1950. In 1934, driven by deep frustration over the glaring inequalities in education and systemic injustice faced by Black Americans, Harry T. Moore, a highly intelligent, shy, and soft-spoken man whose words carried weight when he spoke, took decisive action. With support from the all-Black Florida State Teachers Association and the civil rights attorney Thurgood Marshall, Moore founded the first NAACP branch in Brevard County. Their mission was to challenge the status quo and to demand justice for Black educators, students, and families across the state. Just 3 years later, in 1937, Moore filed a bold and unprecedented lawsuit, Gilbert v. Board of Public Instructions of Brevard County, challenging the pay disparities between Black and white teachers. While many Black educators feared retaliation and remained silent, one man, Harry's good friend and fellow principal, John Gilbert, stepped forward as the plaintiff. Although the case was ultimately dismissed, it sparked a movement, laying the foundation for future victories in pay equality, including McDaniel v. Board of Public Instructions in 1941. With unwavering determination, Harry and Harriet circulated petitions, handed out flyers, and wrote countless letters, all in defiance of unequal salaries, segregated schools, and systemic suppression of Black voters. Yet Harry's commitment to justice moved beyond education. He began investigating lynches, police brutality, and wrongful conviction throughout the state of Florida, becoming one of the first in the South to formally document racial terror. In 1941, Harry was appointed president of the Florida State Conference of the NAACP, an unpaid role that he embraced with passion. Determined to empower their community, Harry and Harriet went door to door registering Black voters. They launched a Progressive Voters League, and within just a few years, over 100,000 Black Americans were registered to vote across Florida. For the first time in the state's history, Black voters held the power to influence elections. In 1946, because of the civil rights work and activism, both Harry and Harriet were fired from their teaching positions and blackballed from the Brevard County school system. However, this would not deter them. In 1947, Harry was appointed as Executive Secretary of Florida NAACP and started receiving a small salary for his work. In 1949, Harry began investigating a controversial case including 4 young Black men, Samuel Shepard, Walter Irvin, Charles Greenlee, and Ernest Thomas, who were accused of essaying a white woman named Norma Pageant. Known as the Groveland case, it grew national headlines and the attention of the NAACP. One of the men was unalived by a posse before arrest. 2 of the men received capital punishment, while the third was sentenced to life. In 1951, after reviewing the case, Harry and the NAACP's legal team appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The court ruled that the men had not received a fair trial and ordered a retrial. On November 6, 1951, while transporting 2 of the Groveland case defendants to a court hearing, Lake County Sheriff Willis McCall shot both men, unaliving one of the men and critically wounding the other. Although both men were handcuffed, McCall claimed they had tried to attack him. Harry Moore responded immediately. Though he received numerous threats, he refused to be silent. He launched a public campaign demanding McCall's arrest and his removal from office. Despite the sheriff's long-standing reputation for corruption and violence, no action was taken. McCall's version of the events were never challenged in court, and he was never held accountable. 6 weeks after launching his campaign for justice in the Groveland case, tragedy struck. On the night of December 25, 1951, just hours after celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary, Harry and Harriet Moore were assassinated. At approximately 10:20 p.m., a powerful explosion ripped through their home in MIMS, Florida. A bomb planted directly beneath their bedroom floor, with a blast so strong it was heard more than 4 miles away. In the chaos that followed, both Harry and Harriet lay gravely wounded. In the home that night were the couple's oldest daughter, 23-year-old Annie, and Harry's mother, Rosalia. Miraculously, both women survived the blast without physical injury, but witnessed the devastating aftermath, Harry and Harriet barely clinging to life. Neighbors rushed to help, and the couple was transported to the nearest Black Service hospital.
After the bombing, many say could be heard 4 miles away. Neighbors drove them 30 miles away to Sanford, the closest hospital that would treat Black Americans.
Harry succumbed to his injuries en route. Harriet, in critical condition, lived to see her husband buried. Their youngest daughter, 21-year-old Evangeline, was away for work. Her train had been delayed and she didn't return home until December 27th. Her uncle would then give her the heartbreaking news. Her father had passed away and her mother was clinging to life. Angeline would spend time at her mother's bedside, and on January 3, 1952, just 9 days after the bombing, Harriet succumbed to her injuries. The bombing of the Moores' home sent shockwaves around the nation. It became known as the bomb heard around the world. Protests and memorials erupted coast to coast, with dozens of rallies held in their honor.
At the museum, this newspaper clipping reads, "The bomb heard around the world." The explosion caught the attention of newspapers across the globe.
Him and his wife was the first martyrs of the Civil Rights Movement. 5 countries wrote about it the next day, and what it signified to them is that America was not the great America that it was supposed to be, that we had troubles in our land, and how dare us talk about other countries, but when our country was falling apart.
The assassination of Harry and Harriet Moore became the first activists to lose their lives in the fight for civil rights. Tragically, they're the only recorded instance in which a husband and wife were both unalived for their activism during the movement. The FBI initially launched an investigation for the bombing of Harry and Harriet Moore in the early 1950s, but it concluded without any charges being filed. Over the decades, the case was reopened multiple times. In 1978, 1991, 2004, and again in 2008, as public pressure and civil rights activists demanded answers. An initial controversy theory suggested by the FBI was that the internal conflict within the NAACP may have played a role in the bombing. Just weeks before the attack, the National Board had voted to remove Moore from his position, concerned that his outspoken political activism clashed with the organization's more cautious approach. However, this theory was never supported by evidence and has been widely discredited. Another long-standing suspicion pointed to Lake County Sheriff Willis McCall, whom Harry Moore had publicly denounced and urged to be removed from office after the 1951 Groveland case shootings. Despite speculation, federal investigators stated that they found no definitive evidence linking McCall to the bombing. Ultimately, the investigation turned towards the Ku Klux Klan. FBI records and later Justice Department reviews identified 5 suspected Klan members who had been involved in the bombing. Yet despite this lead, no one was ever charged or convicted. Investigators found that the evidence, while suggestive, was not conclusive enough to support prosecution. By the time the case was revisited in the 2000s, all 5 suspects were deceased, effectively closing the door on any possibility of justice through the court. Despite multiple investigations, national attention, and decades of advocacy, no one has ever been held accountable for the assassination of Harry and Harriet Moore. In 2011, the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division officially closed the case, citing a lack of living suspects and only circumstantial evidence remaining. Many found that the outcome was a major disappointment, speculating that because the Moores were Black activists whom challenged the entrenched system of racism and power, there were never a full commitment to solving the unalivings.
Okay, justice, if it could be called that, never enforced.
There was a reluctance on the part of top officials in the FBI not to upset people in the South by going overboard to find the killers of this Negro organizer, as he was called.
In 1952, Harry T. Moore was posthumously awarded the NAACP's Spingarn Medal, one of the organization's highest honors. Decades later, the Moores' legacy continued to receive long overdue recognition. In 1999, the family home was declared a Florida Historical Heritage Landmark, and in 2004, the Harry T. and Harriet V. Moore Memorial Park and Museum opened on the original site. A replica of their home, built just 10 feet from where the original home once stood, opened to the public in 2009. In 2013, the Cocoa, Florida Post Office was renamed in their honor. Their eldest daughter, Annie Rosalia Moore, became a teacher and lived a quiet life. She passed away on August 30th, 1972. Evangeline would speak on the deep emotional wounds her sister carried, remembering how Annie had been the one to open the door that tragic Christmas night in 1951 and witnessed the horrific aftermath. She was never the same, Evangeline stated. She was left with scars no doctor could treat. Their youngest daughter, Juanita Evangeline Moore, followed in her parents' footsteps as an activist. Dedicating her life to preserving their legacy, she worked relentlessly to share their story, ensuring their sacrifices were never forgotten. Angeline passed away on October 26, 2015, at the age of 85. Sergeant Willis McCall, who remained a symbol of violence and corruption throughout his career, passed away in 1994 at the age of 84. During his 27 years in office, McCall openly bragged about being investigated 49 times, yet was never removed from his position. In 2021, the state of Florida posthumously exonerated all 4 men in the Groveland case. Norma Paget, whose accusations sparked the Groveland case, passed away in 2024 at the age of 92. Harry and Harriet Moore's story is one rooted in bravery, conviction, and sacrifice. Their names may not be written in every textbook and often forgotten, but their impact is felt in every step made towards justice. Their fight laid the foundation for the many leaders after them to build on, like Dr. Martin, Minister Malcolm, and Brother Medgar. The Moores were 2 souls who believed in change, even when that belief came at the cost of their lives. Harry once quoted, "Every advancement comes by way of sacrifice. Freedom never descends upon a people. It is always bought with a price." To Harry and Harriet, thank you. Your stand gave others the strength to rise. No story is forgotten, no voice should go unheard. When justice failed, vengeance is the Lord's. I pray that Harry, Harriet, Annie, and Evangeline continue to rest in peace. Until the next time, thank you for watching Shades of Crime. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And remember to pray. God's listening.